This is The Briefing. I'm George Bruno. I'm talking with Allende. Welcome.
Thank you, George.
What is your impression so far of the Conference of Masculine Excellence?
Well, you know what? I think that it's a beautiful start. A lot of camaraderie, a lot of very interesting men from all over, and I'm looking more forward to what it's going to evolve into. I think this is the beginning. I think it's a great opportunity for us to continue to build and to invite more and more men, into the concept of working and building together and sharing ideas, experiences, and concepts. So I'm really interested to see where it's going to go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. People have to get over the notion that competing means destroying the other. We're not competing in order to destroy the other guy. We're competing to get to the finish line, and other men motivate us to run faster, to work harder.
Right.
Iron sharpens iron.
No, I agree. I think that what happens is culturally, we kind of go in and out and have different ways of viewing maybe language. So what it sounds like to me that you're saying is that there's a misunderstanding between battle and competition. Battle is competitive, but battle is war. Battle, the aim is to hurt and destroy the opposition, whereas competition is the interest of who's better, right? It's the desire to be better, as well as the interest in knowing who is better.
And when you compete, at the end, you can shake hands.
Exactly. In battle, it doesn't matter who's better. In battle, it matters who wins.
Yeah.
It matters who survives and who wins.
Who survives.
Right? And I think that's why the difference between battle and competition is competition, we have to have an understood set of rules.
Yeah.
Right? We understand what the goalpost is, so to speak, and we also understand what's the rules of engagement, what are the rules in which we need to operate in, what's the parameter, and then we find out who's truly the better.
Yeah, you're right. Before lunch, we were talking about a little story that you shared with me that was quite poignant, and about fathers, and it was powerful. And my first reaction was, the world needs to see this and to hear this. Are you willing to share a little bit of that story?
I definitely would like to share. I think right now, culturally, we are in a fatherhood deficit. And what I was saying is, we have a lack of biological fathers. We have a lack of communication and relationship between individuals and biological fathers. And I think the most important part of that travesty, because it is very unfortunate, but I think the most important thing in any deficiency is focusing more on what is the solution, what are the options. So if these fathers aren't there, for whatever reason, I feel like right now we're just now kind of starting to acknowledge it, where I think we should be much further along down the process of how can we supplement it. So if the biological fathers are missing, does that mean that fatherhood is missing? Does that not mean that there are still very experienced and wise men available to help fill into some of these gaps? I hear a lot of men with the desire to be fathers, and they feel trapped because they feel like it's too risky. They feel like they can't guarantee this relationship between a woman and with their children. They feel like they don't have control over that family unit. It can be taken away from them at any time, which is true. I agree with that full-heartedly. But that desire is still there. So why are we not exploring options like coaching, mentoring, teaching? Do you have to receive a paycheck in order to be authorized to do these things? Why are you waiting on someone to hire you as a coach? If you have athletic experience, you played a sport, why are you not going by the local parks and seeing what kids are not there because there's no one putting a ball in their hand and encouraging them to come out and play? And in that opportunity, now you can go ahead and pass on some fatherly advice, you can pass on some mentorship, because it becomes about a lot more than just playing that particular sport. You understand what I mean? So I think that how that correlates the story that I was telling you that I'm going to share in a moment is that I didn't have my father because my father died at a very young age, but I understood that he didn't abandon me, he didn't leave, he was taken from me, and he was very, very much invested before that. So I kind of always had that comfort of knowing, unlike some of my peers, my father didn't leave me, or he wasn't unknown. It wasn't, identity unknown. It was just simply he was taken away from me. And I held on to that loss and that pain and that longing for many years. But I had a very involved grandfather. My grandfather was extremely involved, always. My entire life, my grandfather was there for me. I also had multiple uncles who were very, very involved and invested. But I was still harping and focusing on the not having a father aspect of it. And that father thing, yes, it's coming with a title. And I was, I think, stressing the title too much. I don't have a father, my father. Not realizing that I had all of this masculine support. You know what I mean? But I was missing that because I was focusing on the I, as an individual, don't have my biological father, right? And it wasn't until I was around the age of 14, and here comes the story. I was living in Florida with my grandfather. I started to get into a little bit of trouble in New York. I'm from New York. But by that age, my grandfather, who I'd always had chose to retire and move to Florida with my grandmother. They bought a house in Florida prior to retirement, and they rented it out until they retired, and they moved to Florida to enjoy that. So, he told my mother, send him down. It's less crime, less violence. It's a good area. Let him come, to Florida and, have more opportunity. So of course I went to Florida. I was playing sports. I was going to good school. It was very diverse. I got to make friendships with kids from all ethnic backgrounds and so on and so forth. And I remember going to the fair with two of my friends. One was named Eric. One was named Derek. Right? I love those guys. Played a lot of sports, rode bikes. We were all about girls at that age. So we go to the fair. We're there. We're running around. We're playing games. We're getting on rides, eating junk food, hot dogs, cotton candy, popcorn, the whole 9 yards. Meeting girls. This is the late 90s, so we're like writing girls' phone numbers down and writing on your hand. I'm never washing this hand, kind of thing. And it was just a great night. It was a great experience. And I remember Eric. He called his dad. Put the quarter in the payphone. That's how long ago it was. And he says, "I'm gonna call my dad. I'll ask him if he'll give you guys a ride home," because we had took the bus to the fair. So it's about 8:30 at night. It's getting dark, coming on our curfew. So his dad says, "Yeah, I'll come get you guys." He comes and picks us up. Dad picks us up. Me and Derek get in the back. Eric gets in the front, sits with his dad. And his father immediately started asking him, "Give me the scoop. How was it? Did you meet any girls? Oh yeah, I got her number. What'd you say to her? And describe her, what she looked like, and all this kind of stuff." And I'm in the backseat witnessing this exchange between father and son. And I immediately feel this pain in the center of my eyes. And, my nose starts to burn, and it starts getting runny, and I'm tearing up, and I instantly look out the window. I don't want anybody to see that I'm crying. And at that moment, I wasn't able to control my emotions. And I was just thinking about that pain of not having that father to connect with, to have those moments where you're making him proud. What it is for a kid to go out and succeed at something. You made the basketball team, or you got into a fight but you won, or maybe you lost and you need to be consoled. You like a girl, you don't know what to say, or you like a girl and you didn't know what to say. All these occurrences that happen as a young man, not having your father, it's just like you're getting stabbed. Every time you have one of those moments, if you don't have a father to share it with, or to ask advice, or whatever the case is, I feel like someone's pricking me with something. Because I have to be reminded that that's not there. And it never occurs to me, let me go ask my mom. Ask my mom for what? So I get home to my grandfather, and I try to kind of but I get in the house and he notices that I was crying. And he says to me, "What happened?" I said, Nothing, Grandpa." And he holds me, he looks in my eye, he forces me to make eye contact with him, and he says, "Did you get in a fight?" Usually that's the only time I would come home emotional, is if I had a fist fight. And I said, "No." He said, "What's the problem?" I said, "Nothing." He said, "You were crying." So I couldn't hold him, and I break down and I start crying. And I said, "I don't have a father. I don't have a dad. I don't have a father." And he looks for a couple of seconds, and then he looks at me in the face, and he says, "How could you be so stupid?" My grandfather's Jamaican, so he says, "Stupid. How could you be so stupid?" I'm shocked at this response. I mean, what do you mean? How am I stupid? I don't have my father. He looked at me and he said, "I'm your dad." He said, "From now on, no more grandpa. You call me dad." From that day, I called him dad. I never called him granddad or grandfather again. I called him dad from that point on. And the weight that he lifted off of me when he made that distinction. And it was at that moment I realized I was stressing a problem that wasn't a problem. I was longing for a component in my life that was already there. It was already there. But I was worrying about the semantics. I was worrying about the terminology. Not realizing that that relationship already existed. My grandfather already asks me how my day went. He already gives me advice. He already consoles me. He already gives me direction. He already studies with me. He already teaches me how to build things, how to patch a flat tire on my bike, how to screw a screw, nail a nail. He's already teaching me these things from when I was small, right? He teaches me how to fish, right? He teaches me how to make a fire without a matches or without a lighter, right? These are important things. The things that the Boy Scouts would teach you, the things that your coach would teach you, the things that your father would teach you, right? And from then on, I understood to take what good you can from older men. Take what you can from whatever you can learn from them, whatever you can absorb from them. And when you have that mindset, it actually pays off even more than you limiting that perception to only say a father. Because now you can have father figures as opposed to a father. Right? It becomes plural now instead of singular. And it fuels the hunger for understanding. And with that understanding comes a comfortability of knowing self. You begin to know yourself now. Because you are tackling those insecurities and saying, if I'm insecure about this, who is someone who is confident in this? And how can I learn to also be as confident in this particular area? Whether it be with women, which is very shallow, right? Or it be with business, it be with athletics, right? Whatever that is, there's a man out there that understands that, right? And you would be surprised at how willing he is to pass that on, which is another trait that I've noticed about older men. It seems the older men become is the more they want to pass on what knowledge and wisdom they have before their time is up. They understand that that is the ultimate value, and that is what legacy is the ability to pass on what you've acquired in your time, as so it doesn't go to waste. And you pass it off with pride, you pass it off with integrity. Take care of this. You understand what I mean? Take care of this. Because I had to cultivate this. I had to risk and build this. And I want to make sure that I'm passing it on to someone who is going to appreciate it and take the same care with it, right? That I would. And then pass it on to theirs.
Well, let me ask you this. When you get older, do you think you'll find yourself looking for young men or being open to teaching young men in the same way that you were taught?
Already decided.
Is that right?
But it's the things that we learn in our youth that we're going to be able to pass on and translate to someone else. So there are things that you might say, hey, listen, I have these goals, these things that I want to do at 50. But you're thinking about it at 27. You're thinking about it at 30. You know, you want to have those notes ready when you do become 50. The pride that I see in older men when they tell stories of their youth. You know what I mean? So that time will come. You know what I mean? I definitely, one of my goals one day is to definitely be able to teach art to younger children, to be able to pass that on. Um, Fitness and understanding the human body also. There's a lot of little things, a lot of things that I'd like to pass on.
What do you want to be known for? When your life is coming to its end, which it will, just like everybody, what do you want to be known for?
I want to be known for giving a damn. For giving a damn. For giving a damn about others, especially the children. And right now, I think that the young boys are a priority. You know, the girls are important too, but I feel like, you know, society is probably a little bit more geared to focusing on their issues. I think the boys are even lost in the mix, and they don't understand it. They don't understand it. So I think as guys, we have to kind of be a little bit more conscious of that. And I've noticed that maybe anything that I find myself doing that could be considered attractive on a visible level, right? Maybe if I'm in shape, maybe if I'm well dressed, maybe if I have a nice car. All of those things that can be observed visually, I've always noticed the impact that it has on little boys. You know, when you're walking by and you're in good shape and you see a boy and he's with his mother, you know, the single mother thing is the norm now. And as you're passing that boy and his mother, you see the boy turning his head and the mother pulling him in that direction. You see him.
Yeah.
And you see his interest level.
Yeah.
Sometimes you even hear, wow, mommy, look at his arms. Wow. Or mom, look at that car. Or, oh, look at that car. And then you hear them. When I grow up, I'm gonna have a car like that. No, you're not. Yes, I am. I'm getting it red. And how could you not remember when you were that little boy?
Yeah.
And you were admiring those qualities and those traits about a man. Because as a boy, one of the things you aspire to be is a man. You look at me and you say,
Because a woman can't teach a boy how to be a man.
she can. And as easily as you just said that, and as easily as I agree with you, because it is the obvious to us, when I talk to women, they struggle with this component. They struggle with it. And I'm like, just take a deep breath and say, I agree. The mental gymnastics that you're doing right now, no, well, it depends. And you know who taught me how to pee? My mom taught me how to pee. And then later my uncle corrected it.
Yeah.
And all this time I was peeing wrong.
Yeah.
It's comical as that example is, I think it's a great way to summarize how idiotic it is to think that a woman can teach a boy how to be a man.
Yeah.
Right? It's silly. It's laughable.
Do you think it takes humility once a man is a young adult to realize that there are things missing in his life and that he needs to seek out masculine guidance and mentorship and examples? That's hard for a man to admit, isn't it?
I think there's two components with that. I think because men aren't given a handbook or a playbook on how to handle their emotions, there's a lot of things going on internally, and they have no idea where it's coming from. So I'm not sure if it's they're uncomfortable vocalizing it, or if they didn't even know that that was an option to even begin to get into that type of conversation. I'll give you an example. There are conversations that I've had with other brothers in their 30s, and randomly we've gotten on the topic of the way that Black mothers show love to their boys, to their sons. And I remember something prompted me to ask a guy, when's the last time your mother told you that she loved you? And it caught him off guard because he said, never. I could never remember that as a kid. And so I made it a point to start asking other guys that, and it's just alarming that how many of them had the same experience. And I'm thinking, how is it that we missed that? We didn't even know that not only was that a thing, because until someone asked you that question, you never really sit down and say, well, there was that Thanksgiving. No, she didn't quite say that. And then you're like, well, wow, we really never really had that conversation. And I remember my best friend telling me, and I knew this guy since 16, we were best friend since 16 since high school. And I remember at like the age of 28, 29, he was saying to me that till this day, when I hug my mother, it's like an awkward feeling. He was like, I can feel her shaking, like she's nervous to hug me. And she didn't even start hugging me until I was already a grown man. So why is there this disconnect with affection in the Black community from the mother? And why is it such a common experience?
Yeah.
Right? For the times that my mother would tell me that she loved me would be when I got into a bunch of trouble. It would be like from a prison cell that she's telling me, I love you.
Yeah.
It's always an extreme scenario. But then with other cultures, it's the complete opposite extreme. You know, when you're dealing with the traditional white dynamic, you hear it pretty casually. And then when you're in the Latin community, you hear it like all the time to the point where it's like, okay, mi amor, mi amor. Every conversation is mi amor, my love, mi amor. It's like, your mother told you she loved you 4 times in one conversation. Yeah. And then it's like, how many years would a Black man have to wait before his mother said, I love you that many times? Yeah. They'd be months apart. Yeah. It'd be like every holiday, she might say, you know, I love you, boy. And it's like, wow. So my point is that I feel like you don't know what you don't know. And there's so many things that we haven't even put our finger on, and we're putting it on their late 20s, early 30s, late 30s, and you're putting your finger on all these things, and you're like, why am I just now noticing this? And it kind of speaks to the dysfunction that we have currently. And the question is, how do we correct this shit? What can we do to correct this? Because it's not normal, it's not healthy, it's definitely not working for us. And I feel that there's such a level of responsibility that's gonna fall on us as men. And this comes back to the semantics again, because then it's the finger pointing. No, it's the problem is the women, and the problem's like, whoa. I'm not talking about fault here, right? I have very little time for fault, because whoever's at fault, is that also going to be the people that are going to provide the solution? Okay, then why are we focusing on fault?
Right.
Let's focus on responsibility and initiative, because with that we get somewhere. Yeah. With fault, we just get resentment. That's what we get with fault, right? And in this community, that's what I'm getting back a lot from the subs. From the subs, I'm getting a lot of fault, a lot of finger pointing. And it's like, dude, you're missing the whole value of the conversation that we've been having. If what we're talking about right now, right, to the viewers equals the problem with single moms, it's like, okay, the current state of affairs is single moms. That's not the solution.
Right.
That's not where we need to be focusing on. That's not where the conversation needs to go. The conversation needs to go to restoring masculinity, right, on an individual level, so that we can make a difference culturally. Yeah. Right? That's what we need to be looking for. So if the men accept this responsibility, right, and say, you know what, I don't care whose fault it is, as a man, let me work with some other men and try to fix some shit. Let's try to fix something. What can we do? Can we pull some money together? Can we get some people to invest and put some money together so that we can pinpoint a community and say, let's do a program here. Let's do something for the boys here. And then after a year or two, when it grows and it gets more support, can we then say, let's involve the girls now? And then when that grows, can we then say, let's involve the single moms now? Can we do that?
Seems like it could be a solution.
I think it could. I think it would definitely help some boys. Yeah. Right? Because what happens with the youth, I think that the biggest investment, this is something that my cousin pointed out to me when my grandfather died. He said, you know what was one of the things that I learned from Dad? I said, what's that? He said, buy people cheap. I said, yeah? He said, yeah, man, you know, when I go to school, because he's a school teacher, he says, when I go to school, I stop at Dunkin' Donuts and I get, you know, a dozen donuts. Yeah, it costs me a few bucks. Then I go to work, I don't even need donuts, but I give them out to all my coworkers, because I'm a male teacher working with a bunch of female teachers, and you already know that's a liability. So I give them all a donut, nobody fucks with me. Yeah. Right? So for an 80-cent donut, for a donut that's less than $1 when you buy them by the dozen, I get them off my back. Yeah. All right? So they mess with the other guy over there. They mess with the gym teacher. They talk shit about him. They don't talk shit about the donut guy. Right? said, really? He said, I said, how'd you get that from Granddad? He said, remember when we were kids, every time you saw Granddad, he used to slide you a bill? I said, yeah. He used to make it a secret. My grandfather, every time he see me under the table, he'd lean in on you, he'd say, put your hand under the table. You put your hand on the table, you put a $20 bill in your hand. 8 years old, 9 years old, $20 bill, that's half a Sega Genesis game, right? But it was because of that in his old age, he had every one of his grandchildren at his disposal. He could just pick up the phone and say, what do you need, Dad? What do you need? What do you need? Because he bought us cheap. Now, there's another thing that my grandfather told me when I was in school. He said there's 3 types of friends you need to make while you're in school. He said you need someone that's going to school to be a doctor, you need somebody that's going to school to be a lawyer, and you need somebody that's going to school to be a mechanic. I said, why, Dad? He said, because in those 3 areas, you're going to need a friend. You're going to need someone that's going to give you the truth, even though it's a conflict of interest to their profit. You get in any legal trouble is incentive for a lawyer. They make money the more you got to go to court. You having health issues is incentive to a doctor. They get paid the more you need to go see them. And when you start having car trouble, the more problems your car has is the more money the mechanic stands to make. So these people need to be motivated by friendship, to be honest with you, because you want to prevent seeing them. I said, wow. Interesting. Right? So there is that value in men looking at each other from the lens of friendship, camaraderie, right? There's a huge value in that transcends profit. And with those relationships, we can profit even more. Because we always got each other's back. We're always promoting each other, always plugging each other. Hey, you know what? I know a guy, I got a friend, call up. And this is how we network, right? And this is how we make a change. This is how we make a difference. But my point with that is, when you invest in the youth and they become adults, you have people you can count on when it doesn't matter how much money you have. And I've known a few coaches and been able to talk to them years later, or known guys that were coaches for many years and now they're retired and they're older. Those men have so much support. Their phone doesn't stop ringing on holidays because of all the kids that they've mentored over the years, all the kids that they helped keep on the right path, all those young men that they steered, and young men that could call them for non-athletic advice. Like, I haven't gone to this school for 5 years, 6 years, but I can still, hey coach, man, I'm having problems with my fiance and I don't know what to do. And coach knows where you're coming from, he knows your personality, he's been dealing with you since you were a boy. And is that not a father-son relationship? So coaches, to me, are very, very valuable because there's so many boys that need more than just a coach. They need the coaching to transcend just the court or the basketball or the field. They need it to, you get what I mean? They need it in life, right? And when you give that to people, they'll always have a place for you in their heart. You're part of them. You're part of the fabric of who they are as a man, right? You're literally part of what they're made of. So in your old age, look who you have. It's like you have children. You have more children than you could have ever sired biologically. You can't tell me that time that you spent wasn't worth more than the money that you were paid. Right? Okay? Because the greatest resource on this planet is humanity, it's humans. And that's what you invested in. You invested in people. Right?
How can people find out more about you and this information? Where can they go?
Well, I'm just getting started. So my channel is at its infancy. Currently, it's tips in whips with Allende. That's Ayiндei. So I just wanted to start off with like tips and kind of usher people in gradually, right? I don't want to get too deep too soon. So I feel like I need to start off a little bit, generic, and then I will work my way, to the deeper core issues. But yeah, I definitely want to talk about a lot of things because I think right now this community is getting very, very vocal, and it's time to evolve. It's time to get into some deeper stuff. And it's also time for the guys to stop being as competitive, like you were saying, right? We have to learn how to be competitive, but also have that sportsmanly attitude about it, right? The personal stuff, we have to learn how to compartmentalize that, and we have to stay on the same page, right? Because to disagree respectfully is a beautiful thing, but anything that is gonna discourage someone else's reputation and personality, we have to be very careful with that, because of how sensitive, you know what I mean, it is for men right now. So we need each other, we need to band together. So women tend to have this biological in-group preference. Men kind of need to emulate more of that, to kind of keep each other going, because we make mistakes. The way you look at something in 2020 might not be the way you look at it in 2025. You might look back at it and say, "Ooh, what was I thinking? Why was I saying that?" You know what I mean, or whatever. But if other things are said amongst each other, that ruins the ability for us to come back to the table and say, "You know what? I'm sorry," or "Hey, I looked at this. Oh, I thought this about you before, but now I think this." Or how can we talk this out and come to an understanding? We don't want to take that option off the table. We don't want to lose that relationship, that openness, where we can always work it out. So that's what I want to see more of in the community. I want to see more people coming in with more point of views, but with a similar goal, right? Which is more of a self-awareness in men as individuals. There's a lot of lostness that I sense coming from the younger guys. They don't know what to do. They don't know where they are. They don't know where to go. They have no idea. And we need people to feel a little bit more comfortable within themselves.
I like that. Mentoring, coaching, fathers, father figures, competition, but not battle, conversation with IND. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it.